Welcome back to the Game of the Week segment. This segment used to occur every week until it stopped occurring, partly due to my internet issues and not being able to live stream. Hopefully that is fixed this upcoming week, and as a preview to that getting fixed and our regular live streaming to be coming back to life, we are resurrecting the Game of the Week series. We've got FakeMews taking on 4boxes here, everyone's favorite community member. I hope you enjoy this game. It is a testament to why you should never concede, except the times that I tell you should concede, because I always tell you when it's optimized to resign. Only resign when I tell you to resign. Welcome to the Game of the Week. We've got FakeMews playing Card Draw Magic, taking on 4box playing some sort of light. Classic matchup here between two community legends. I even hit the full screen button. That's how high tech we're getting this event here. So in the mulligan phase, I'm simply just looking to survive. I want to play pretty defensive, assuming that they are aggro light. The reason why I made that assumption is because they picked the Summon Acolyte God Power. If they were playing a more control variant, they typically go with heal. 4box, a outstanding member of our community, and probably one of the most popular people within the community. Everyone loves a good 4box, and everyone loves to pull for 4box. I'm sure I have many 4box fans watching the Game of the Week here. Leave a comment in the comment section if you are 4box. If you're or a 4box fan, we want to know all about you. Anyways, they have the standard aggro open, 2 cards coming out immediately, and I elect to pass. You could argue playing the Tracking Bolt there, but I'm hoping to get more value out of it later. Covered Knowledge, it's not a very good time to draw that card, not anything to obviously get back from our Void, and they're going to come out there, and they play a Relic, so this is a little bit off tempo for them, and we draw a Shape Blast, which we love to see. So Shape Blast is one of the cards that I would have loved to have had, and we get it. We draw a lot of cards. Drawing cards helps out those Leyhorde Hatchlings. In fact, we can even play one next turn for 3 mana. And 3 mana to deal 4 damage to a minion and have a 3/3 body on the board. It's a very, very strong turn. The 1/1 minion is kind of just out there ready to die. With that being said, it will mildly distract our opponent, and that is worth approximately 1 point of damage. And also, dealing 1 point of damage to the pacifist, it could end up mattering at some point later. Who knows? We definitely have a Shaped Blast in hand and ready to go. We top deck Palace Wand, which changes what I was going to do. I was going to play Leyhorde Hatchling and remove a minion, and may still should have stuck with that line, but man, I couldn't resist the Leyhorde Hatchling. I probably should have pipped out Form of Power there. Again, they're 3 wide, and you don't let white have a wide board. Though I can kind of understand what I'm doing here, because I'm thinking I'm Shape Blast next turn, so no reason to waste resources. I'm only saying that retrospectively because I know what they do this turn. It's just the Shape Blast seems like the key card here, but you've always got to keep in mind stuff like Protective Benediction and Sanctify that Light loves to do can really help them in spots like this. And they're going to go ahead, play the Vesper of Concession, and get the Nightleaf Trapper. So the Nightleaf Trapper going to ping away at my Relic, which is okay, but I mean, we've got 3 charges left on the Relic. It'll go down to 2. It's not a huge deal. So they end up with a very wide board here. The fortunate thing is Shape Blast kills a lot of it, but it only kills 3 minions. Tracking Bolt can kill 1 minion and pick off the ward on other stuff. So between the Nightleaf Trapper and the Vesper of Concession, they have milked 2 durability off of my Palace Wand. I want to play Tracking Bolt first. It gets the Protected off the Vesper, and it gets the Ward off the Drider Sailweaver. That's the idea behind that. And then I'm going to get out the Leyhorde Hatchling to fight for the board. However, our opponent has managed to get themselves 4 wide, and this is going to be somewhat problematic, because when Light gets a wide board and then is able to slap down Protective Benediction, the god that struggles with that happens to be Magic. So they get the armor, and they have the option between Protected and the Health, and they elected to go with Protected. That is certainly one of the 2 viable plays here, and now we are in a very difficult spot. Usually Protective Benediction on a wide board with aggro Light is your win condition against Magic and card draw Magic as well. This is typically the point of no return, and they have us up against the ropes right now in this game. Shape Blast only takes off the Protected on those minions. Meanwhile, my Palace Wand has never looked worse. I haven't drawn a card off of it yet and had 4 durability removed by those minions in play that just keep chipping away at it. We Shape Blast and kill a grand total of 1 minion. That feels pretty bad. And go ahead, use the Form of Power to get rid of 1 Nightleaf, so hey, we can kind of get some durability on our Palace Wand going here. Will we draw a card off of Palace Wand in this game? That is the question that's being asked, and honestly, the answer is, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to draw one. We may go the entire game without drawing a card off of Palace Wand. But here, they still have 3 minions with armor on the board. Our hand has no answers to anything. It's quite depressing. They go ahead and play a Battle Oryx, which is smart because if we get a second Shape Blast, it doesn't die, because obviously I'm going to go after the non-frontline minions and not the 1 frontline minion. A mistake when applying that buff. They applied it to the Vesper of Concession. They left themselves more vulnerable to AoEs. If they put it to the Drider, they would have had a 3-3 with 1 armor, survive Shape Blast. Keep that in mind for future turns, because what do we top deck? We top deck Pyrrhic Knowledge like a pro. And that allows us the opportunity to get back that Shape Blast, play it, and now you notice Drider Sailweaver would have lived if they had applied the buff there. Unfortunately, unfortunately for them, they put it on the Vesper of Concession, which dies to the Shape Blast. Keep in mind, I did mill 5 cards off of my deck list to play that. But, I mean, going 5 cards closer to fatigue is much better than just dying. So that was the thought process there. But we have 13 cards remaining in our list. We've got an Oni in hand, and we're just thinking that, hey, if we can get that on board, spiral out of control, we can take over this game. We're still on the defensive, though. Even after that, they still have the initiative with the only minion to survive, and it's Light, so they're going to continue flooding the board, and they've got a Thester, so yeah, they continue to flood the board, indeed. We do have an Ancient Text, which can kill the Wild Oryx, and we have a Worm Breath, which can handle the Thester, pretty much regardless of how many minions they play this turn. Also, Leyhorde Hatchling in certain situations can also deal with Thester. With that in mind, we feel like that we're doing, okay here. We get rid of Thester, we can get rid of the Battle Oryx. We are at 8. It's very sweaty. They can get us to 6 with their mace. We top deck a Shadow Scryer. Here we're going to get the Leyhorde for board presence. Toss out the Ancient Text. And when we toss out the Shadow Scryer, that will give us the opportunity to draw again with Palace Wand. And that's nice because we need to fill up our hand. We don't have that many options moving forward here. The Unbound Flames is going to be useful in 2 turns, but we still have to figure out what we want to do next turn. We are at 8. We can't afford to get that much lower. I mean, we're already to the point where if they have a Canonize, they can get us down to 3. And they can get us down to 4 this turn immediately, which means the Canonize would actually get us down to 1. My math there was bad. It is early in the morning for me as I'm recording this. But here, they go to the rope, obviously have a lot of options. I'm thinking that they have some sort of buff, and indeed they have a buff. It is Asterius. And they go straight to the face. They get us down to 4. They're thinking, can we get them any lower than 4? And apparently the answer is no. We have a second Unbound on top of our list, and we're just like, hey, we'll keep that. We can Warm Breath, use our God Power, and then give up the Lay Horde and the Shadow Scryer to kill those 2 minions on the board. It is definitely the line that we must take here. Now, the only question is do I want to deny them favor or do I want to gain more favor myself? And I elect to deny them favor by using the God Power first. I don't gain 3 favor, but neither does my opponent. We probably could have bought the Rune of Life and the Sanctum. At this point, we almost know for certain that we're buying it. But that was a key turn. It's a key turn because we know that we've got Unbound Flames. We've got 2 Unbound Flames available in our back pocket right now, which are pretty much going to be board wipes in just about any scenario here. The Shadow Scryer left on the board could be a distraction for their relic, and if it saves us 2 points of damage, then we're feeling quite nicely about how it performed at that point. They are going to try to buff that echoed minion, Thester's little brother or something like that, all the way to the moon. They're going to flood the board, still flooding the board here, but as you see, we've got the Unbound Flames. You know I'm very happy to see Shadow Scryer eat a point there. And nothing has changed. This Unbound Flames has gotten incredibly juicy. So we play the Unbound Flames, remove all of the minions here, which is very convenient. And that will give us the opportunity to purchase the Rune of Life. I mean, we had the opportunity anyways, but we're going to exercise the opportunity. Now we're sitting here with 2 Oni spell swords in hand, and pretty much just looking for the chance to just drop them out on the board here. But they're going to continue to go wide, and I'm in an awkward spot because if I ever let them do anything here, I think I pretty much just die. So they've only got 1 card left in hand. I have to decide whether or not I want to give up my Unbound Flames. I'm at 4. I can go to 7 by playing a Rune of Life, but I can't even develop much of a board doing that. So I didn't want to do this, but I gave up the Unbound Flame right there, and probably should make a Sanctum purchase here as well, and elect not to. The Card Shark is definitely probably the best card available for me, though you can argue sometimes the Rune of Sight can dig into something useful. So here they get 2 more minions onto the board. They keep pressuring us. And this is somewhat awkward because we are indeed at 4 life. So now kind of digging desperately with the recovered knowledge here. We get an Ancient Text which deals with the 2/2 and the Tracking Bolt, which is indeed useful itself. So we're thinking Ancient Text will deal with the minion on the board, and they've got 1 card in hand. I'm very afraid that's a buff. Very afraid that's a buff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the cost of Rune of Life. The reason being is if they've got a buff and a way to get by the Card Shark, then they can kill me. I've got plenty of cards in hand, and at the moment, I just want to heal. So we get the Warp Engineer out there for board presence to help contest the board that they put out this turn. We play the Card Shark to pose a distraction to our opponent. They either have to attack into it, which means the Card Shark would have saved us 3 points of damage, very effective, or they have to use a card like a Light's Levy or some sort of removal on it, in which case they get to go to our face, but hopefully they won't have enough burst damage to kill us and remove the Card Shark token this turn. We've got a Tracking Bolt, we've got an Ancient Text, and we're just looking, we're salivating, we're trying to find the opportunity to get our Oni spell swords out there. We just have been down tempo the entire game. Now they go ahead and play the Militant Theist, which means that if they had like another another buff, or like for instance, Canonize here is 1 point short, so reducing the Rune of Life was big in those lines. But they go ahead, create another minion, and here they do go to the face, which is the correct line. Shield Maiden, and they're gonna pose one last stand of an incredibly wide board. One would think, right? But here they go to the rope, and then they finally decide to play it, which is indeed the best card that they could play. Valka's Discovery pops up in the Sanctum, and that's a very interesting card. Here we give up the Palace Wand looking for extra options, and we do indeed get extra options. We don't have many cards left in the deck, so the Palace Wand isn't going to last long. I felt like I needed more things to do this turn. If I didn't top deck Worm Breath, the Card Shark would have probably attacked into the Shield Maiden. We would have used a Tracking Bolt, Valka's Discovery, which would have killed those two minions. The Ancient Text would have killed another, and then the Warp Engineer could have finished off the last minion. So there was a line there that actually was probably better than what I played. So top decking the Worm Breath might have hurt. Now that I think about it, because I would have got a complete board wipe instead of having to Ancient Text my face, which is just very cringe. I grab a minion to cycle the Sanctum. The Rune of Fire looks relatively dangerous. However, it's actually pretty good for us. Our opponent only has 3 favor, so we know they're never buying that. And because we're buying it next turn. We gave ourselves Protected to protect ourselves against Canonize, any 2 strength buff. And so now it's pretty difficult for Light to chip off the Protected and kill us on the same turn. They have a 1 strength buff, and their main goal should be to remove the Protected from our god. They're going to the rope here, summon another Acolyte token, and will they continue to fight for the board? And they don't remove the Protected, which I disagree. I think they should have taken the Protected off of our god. We top deck Street Conjurer, which is nice. We put Warp Engineer on the bottom of our deck, which means we just delay drawing it for 1 turn. Now we've got options this turn. We can play Street Conjurer, we can play Valka's Discovery, and this is ideal. So the main idea here is we're getting a complete board wipe, and he could have gotten the Protected off of our god effectively for free and decided not to. So with this, we have the 1/1 minions stick on the board. The Tortesian Improviser enters the board. We still should be the first one to be able to grab that Rune of Fire in the Sanctum. We haven't figured out an opportunity to play those 2 Oni Spell Swords, which are just sitting there crying, wanting to play. They want to play Gods Unchained, and they have yet to have the opportunity. Our opponent still has 1 card in hand, and I still have no idea what it is. Again, I'm assuming it's some sort of buff. So we've reached the point of the game where Pyrrhic Knowledge is about to have no detriment because there will be no more cards left to mill. And now it's finally time to get the Oni Spell Swords out there. with 8 mana and almost about time to mill, it is finally Oni Spell Sword time. We get out the first Oni Spell Sword. We're posing the question to our opponent, who all they can do is activate the God Power and apply a buff. But man, those minions are just doomed. They're doomed for failure. So they're still going to the rope. They play the Radiant Dawn, which is that last card in their hand that they've been holding the entire game, just hoping that it can do something against what I am against the questions that I am posing here. So again, we're out of cards in our deck. We are completely out of steam. So we're going to go ahead, purchase the Worm Breath to remove the 4/4. The Rune of Fire in the Sanctum is the very last card to remove their board entirely. However, they have no cards in hand, and we have Oni Spell Swords rolling at the moment. Go ahead, just play the Rune of Sight just to buff the Onis. It's rare that you play a 0-cost Rune of Sight because of the and just for the buff, but our opponent now has to deal with those two Onis, which represent lethal when we play the Rune of Strength. They top deck a Levy, which only gets the ward off of our Rune Moth. That won't be enough. We have a very amazing victory, very tight game that comes down to fatigue for game of the week.